What's up guys, TopTierYugioh here, and today I want to talk about teams. Yu-GiOh is a team game actually, not an individual one. And although there is an I in Yu-GiOh, there is no I in team. It sounds super cliche and you hear it so much about team sports like basketball or football, where you have literal groups of people facing other groups of people. And then even in individual sports like tennis, where players have a team of coaches and trainers. Or in golf, where you have again a team of coaches, you have caddies, psychologists, physiologists, analysts, and just many more people behind you. Yu-GiOh is the exact same way, and while you're the only one sitting across from your opponent, and your name is the only one on that match slip, your results are largely the result of the combined effort of your team. And so with this video, I want to talk about the purpose of a team, building, managing, and evaluating teams, and then the impact that teams have on your results. So let's start with the purpose of a team. I think it's good to start with a definition. And so, a definition of teamwork is the cooperative and coordinated effort on the part of a group of people acting together as a team or in the interest of a common cause. And so I really want to emphasize a few things in this, such as cooperative effort, as in people working together rather than with or alongside each other. It's sort of like you and your buddy who go to the same locals and give each other tips on your decks. That's not a team, for example. You're just two people who give each other tips on each other's decks. Being on a team with someone is a little bit different. Next, you need a coordinated effort, as in working together with purpose and direction. On teams, usually people have roles or jobs to fulfill that improve the team. And then finally, you need a common cause. Your motivations have to be the same or at least similar. If a guy isn't going to an event, how hard is he really going to prepare for it? Or if one person's goal is just to top locals and another person's goal is to go to worlds, then that's probably not going to work out. You just have different motivations, different goals, and so it's going to be hard to work together. When it comes to building a team, you want to first find players who are near you who you can work with. You don't have to be extremely close to them, but you just have to be able to go to events together, and whether that be locals or any other larger event, you just need to be able to go to them together. So again, so you have similar motivations, you can work together to do well at that actual event. For most players, I think this starts at your locals. I know the first team that I was on, it was just a group of us from locals and we just wanted to consistently do better at locals. We just wanted to win locals every single time, and that's what we did. And now with my current team, I've been to locals maybe 2 to 3 times within the past year, but we just go to other events like regionals and stuff together. And so the size and scale can vary greatly, but you just have to have a common goal. And so you really have to network to find the right people to make it work. Next, you're going to find players who are skillful, willing to improve, and then willing to challenge each other. And to be honest, being skillful is probably the least important thing when it comes to teams. Because if someone isn't skillful but they're willing to improve and willing to challenge others, they have a good work ethic, then they're going to improve naturally. The willingness to improve is something that everybody on the team should have. Everybody should be striving for personal improvement, striving for greatness. And then when it comes to challenging each other, it really helps you stay away from complacency like that. Because if your goals were just to say top locals and then all of a sudden now you're topping locals, then it's easy to sort of get complacent and to stop really working as hard as you used to be. But when you're challenging each other, then it's going to sort of keep you working hard because you want to keep one-upping each other. And then once you find the right people for your team, you need to find a medium of communication. You need to make a group text, Facebook group, or get some phone numbers and do a group call once a week or however often you want to. Maybe Skype, who knows, but you need some way for communicating with the rest of the team. And whatever works for the most people, that's probably what you should be doing. But again, you just have to be able to communicate. Because if you're only seeing each other at locals or at whatever tournament that is, then you're not going to really, you're just going to be out of sync really. Like, you're just random people at an event in that case. So you have to be able to communicate outside of the event so that you can all help each other prepare for those events. So let's move on to managing a team. And I think the most important thing about managing a team is realizing that it's all about building a culture. You need to do your best to create a place for your team to play and thrive, all while enjoying it and reaching both their individual and team goals. And a lot of this comes from your day-to-day interactions. Like, are you actively involved in conversations? Do you uplift and inspire your team? Do you challenge each other? Do you want to make sure that everybody feels valued and important to the overall functioning of the team? When each member puts in the needs of the team above their own, then the team will really flourish, but you have to make that possible for your players. And whether you're the leader or just a regular old member, you have to do the best that you can in order for the other players on your team to do the same. Another important thing about managing a team is delegating roles. And if you look at any important team in the world, everybody on that team has a different role. So if you look at the cabinet, for example, every member of the cabinet has a different job. I mean, even though they probably don't know what they're doing, they have a different job. And so for Yu-Gi-Oh teams, what roles you have sort of depends on the team and what your team needs. But examples would be like a team vendor to get cards for everybody, or to do the trading and stuff while people are playing. Because it is very difficult to focus on like vending and to keep up with prices and everything, while keeping up with the competitive aspects of the game and while actually playing in a tournament. So like if you get to a tournament, it's hard to trade while doing deck list and filling out your deck list and like getting mentally ready to play in a tournament. Another role could be like a team analyst, someone who can maybe look at the team's individual members' results as well as team results and look for ways for the team to improve. Maybe they're looking at the results from all the other tournaments in the format, so you can sort of gauge what other players are doing. They can sort of gauge the meta, what text they might see, what trends are going on. Very valuable role. Next, maybe an OCG expert, maybe somebody who's looking at the OCG to sort of see what sort of ideas might come up in the future of the format, or maybe what ideas from the OCG would translate over to the TCG. Just to maybe give you guys an edge, you could also have like a team judge, someone who's very good at rulings, game mechanics, etc., to make sure everybody else is at that same level. Because if nobody on the team is good at rulings and game mechanics, then you're all just gonna have a lot of trouble. But if you have a judge on the team, it's gonna help a lot. And also if you have someone just judging the event that you guys are going to, that's pretty valuable as well, because you're gonna know exactly how things are gonna be ruled. Because they can talk to the head judge, or of course you can talk to the head judge too, but they have a little bit of that inside information on like what's going on in the tournament. So they can really keep you up to date on that. Next, maybe an event organizer, maybe somebody who's going to get all the travel accommodations and hotel accommodations set up and ready so that everyone can focus more on like actually playtesting and preparing for the tournament rather than so much just getting to it. So having a tournament organizer could be nice. And then finally, maybe have a treasurer. And so if you guys have dues, a lot of groups and teams have dues, and this is someone who could handle that money, maybe set up a bank account for it, making sure that everybody pays their part, gives their fair share, and then allocates that money where it needs to go. So maybe that goes to the event organizer, who's going to help you guys set up hotel and travel accommodations. Maybe some of it goes towards cases. Maybe it goes towards team supplies such as t-shirts, hoodies, playmats, dice, etc. But if there's money involved, it's nice to have somebody whose main role is focused around that. There are many other roles that you can have as well. This list isn't all inclusive, but it's just important sometimes to delegate to your team members. So if you're a leader of a team, it's good to delegate because one, it establishes trust amongst the team, but it's also just hard for one person, the leader, to do all of this. And so it really lightens the load of everybody when you're sharing the work. The next important part of managing a team is testing. You want to keep everybody on the team on the same page, function as a single entity, and be sure to test properly. You need proper, directed, and objective playtesting if you really want to learn anything from it. Time is you and your team's most valuable resource, so you don't want to waste it. If you want to learn more about proper playtesting, I just made a video about that like a couple of days ago, so click the link in the top right corner of the screen. It's going to take you right to that. And then in that video, I'll talk about how you can optimize your testing to analyze your deck's problems and then find solutions to them. Next, you want a method of resolving conflicts. It's very natural for there to be conflicts between members, egos will clash, people will have disagreements, but you want to just have some way of resolving them. Like whether you vote, maybe it comes down to a duel, maybe you play rock, paper, scissors. One of my favorites is that you just flip a coin. So like if any of you guys have seen Hunter x Hunter, you know about the Phantom Troop, and they always just flip the coin if there's a disagreement. I always thought that was pretty cool. But it doesn't really matter how you resolve conflicts, you just have to have some way of doing that. Or if you don't have like an established way. The leader of the group or the team has to be able to mitigate that conflict. But finally, again, you just have to excel in your role. Whether you're the leader of your team or if you're just a member of it, everybody on that team is equally important. And if you don't have a defined role, just do your best to contribute to the team in team conversations and testing sessions. Just continue to just do the best that you can. Try to always have the best results at events or locals or any sort of tournament. Just do what you can to become the best player on your team while making everybody else better as well. When it comes to evaluating your team, you want to look at the results from each of your members as well as the team. And so you want to look at each individual member and say, what was your record at this event, your record at this event, or how many times did you finish in top cut? But then also look at the team results. So how many times did the team win a tournament? Or did the team finish in top cut? How many top spots did they have? So you want to look at it from an individual and a group aspect, because it's going to sometimes paint a different picture of how your team is done. You want to discuss what each player's strengths and weaknesses are and how they can improve, and also ask them what they think about their own strengths and weaknesses and again how they can improve. Because oftentimes people are going to have different perspectives on these things, and sort of looking at it from both sides is going to help that player so much more than just having one person's opinion on it. And so look back at all the events that you went to with your team and look at who's topping, like who had the most tops, who had the worst record. Like, was there a person who was consistently scrubbing out? Maybe that's a conversation that you need to have. Maybe there's a person who was topping a lot more than everybody else. Again, that's a conversation that you should have. You should be praising that member. Look at how your team did on average, who's doing above and below average. And really just look at all of your players and then compare that sort of what the average of your team is. And so if you're a local team and most of the players are making top cut every week, but then you have a guy who makes top cut once a month, then you guys are going to have to get him up to speed. That's sort of the purpose of evaluating though, so that you can identify where the problems are going in the team, like where the team is maybe a little lacking, so that you can compensate and adjust for that. Because again, ultimately you want to get everybody on the same page. You want everybody to be improving and progressing at their own game, so that you have the highest chance of winning whatever event that you want to win. Again, whether it be locals or worlds, you want to do what you can to make sure everybody is playing well. But you also want the group to play well. And so if everybody's around the same level, you want to look at how you can raise the average level of the group's play. And there are multiple ways to go about this. Like, you can make the team better by making every single player better, but you can also make the team better by maybe testing better. You can make the team better by changing the group atmosphere, the culture, or implementing new rules, maybe changing the roles a little bit. There's a lot of little tinkering that you can do to make the team better, but you have to be willing to try. One of the hardest things about teams is realizing when you need to cut some of the members. And so this should never be like at the first evaluation, and also be sure that it isn't personal. You want to have a valid reason for this. You know, like, is the team really better without this person, or does someone else just do their job better? Give them a chance to explain themselves, but it's really difficult when you have to cut people, but sometimes it just has to be done. So after evaluating your team again from an individual and from a group perspective, if you feel that there's a player who isn't making your team better, and that there are other players who do make it better, then again, you have to be willing to cut them. Because you just can't keep adding people to your team, because every person that you add to your team carries a little bit of a risk. Because once you add someone to your team, you don't know if you can trust them. And if you can't trust them, whatever advantage you're giving your team, they're going to be transferring to somebody else who isn't on your team. And so you have to be sure that you can trust people. And so the hiring and firing process is very important. And then when you do integrate new players to the team, make sure that they feel welcome and that they're wanted and can bring value to the team. Show them how the team can bring value to them in return. So finally, I want to mention the impact of teams. And so I think we can all agree that teams do make most players better. But it's really dawned upon me the other day when I was looking at the results from Team Wars, from ARG's Team Wars, and I think ARG has done a fantastic job at really emphasizing team play. I think Konami is sort of lacked in this regard, but ARG has made it so that teams are such an important part, because Team Wars is a part of the individual circuit series, but then they're even having a 3v3 tournament at the Invitational. But ARG has really made teams an important part of Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, teams were always there, but now teams are the ones who are playing in tournaments. Like every circuit series, they have a Team Wars, and even at the Invitational, there's a 3v3 team tournament. So I just think ARG has done a fantastic job with teams. I really appreciate that as well. But I digress. I was looking at the results from different Team Wars, and I kept noticing how there was always multiple people on a team topping, rather than just a single individual. And it's like, usually the common cause for a team is to win the tournament, and the best way to do that is by having a lot of people make top cut. So when a team works effectively and efficiently, it should be successful at doing that. Like, they're going to have a lot of people in top cut, right? And so I was looking at the results from Team Wars, and it was like so many teams had all these guys in top cut, and other teams will have nobody in top cut. So it just sort of shows how teams are often on that same level. Then when it comes to events, they tend to have very similar results. So for example, at ARG Knoxville, the card guys had 4 players in top cut. And then Pro Play Games also had 4 players in top cut. So it's like these teams are definitely doing something right if they're getting most of their players in top cut. If you compare that to another team, like unfortunately my own team, Ocean View Gaming, we had nobody in top cut. We were definitely doing something wrong. And then again, YBM also had 4 players in top cut. This isn't always true, because Team Plus One, they had 1 player in top cut, but in most cases, there's going to be more than 1 player making top cut if anyone on that team makes it. Then even if you go back to the Team War before that, it looks like they had 3 players in top cut. PPG, 2 players in top cut, I think. But then you look at another team, Team Synergy, 0 players. Or if you look at Team Plus One, 1 player. YBM, maybe 4 players. I'm not exactly sure who made top cut, by the way, in this one, because it didn't quite highlight. I'm just looking at people who had 18 or more points, because I'm assuming if you had 18 points, you probably made top cut, but that might not be true, because this was, let's see, this was 8 rounds, so you went 6-2. That might have gotten you in top cut. Like, I'm sure some X2s made it, but I'm also sure some X2s didn't make it. But I'm going to assume for the sake of the argument that they did. And so if we also compare this to Team Matt Fox, they had 0 players make it. Collector Store, 0 players make it. But then Harambe and Alex, 2 players. So it's like, it's very, very unlikely that just one player makes it, or even that one player has the record capable of making it. It's like either the team has been doing well and that they're doing things correctly and that like 3 or 4 people are going to make it, or the team is doing things incorrectly and none of them are going to make it, maybe one max. If you go back even one more time and you look at ARG Atlanta, Card Guys had 1 guy make it, Team Shenanigans had 3 guys make it, Angry Comics had 2 guys, Bookend had 0 guys, Bookend B, 0 guys, but then PPGA had 2 guys, PPG's B had 1 guy, so I mean 3 PPG guys pretty much. But then you look at Team Lockdown, 0 guys. So it's like you can tell what teams are doing things right and what teams are doing things wrong. So this is really like the impact that teams have on the game. So it's painfully obvious how important teams are when they do things correctly. And so my challenge to all of you is to go out and create a team. Look for players who you can consistently collaborate with and collectively take your game to the next level with. And to those of you who are on teams, how has being on a team affected your play? And for those of you who don't go to locals, who don't have the ability to be on a team, then look for online groups, because ultimately being on a team is just a group of players with similar motivations. But you can also be with a group of players online in like a Facebook group or on a forum such as Pojo or maybe Duelist Grounds. But there are many different places where you can be in communities of players. But the important thing is just to be contributing to a group and having that group also contribute to you, because ultimately it's going to make both parties better. So finally, I want to end this on a Patrick Hoban quote. I read this from his book and I just thought it was very enlightening. And so Hoban said that your circle is your team. Our circle is our main way of exercising control over each of the 4 areas of influence. Even though the game is played individually in tournaments, our individual success will depend on the strength of the team we develop. Again, that's just such a true statement. And so as always guys, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section below. If you liked and enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, feel free to comment, subscribe, appreciate it. And as always guys, I will see you in the next video.